A Delta Force operator and his combat K9 were on a routine training exercise in the Virginia wilderness. When the dog froze mid-step, his ears locked on something deep in the forest. They found her bound to a tree, 8 months pregnant, her mouth taped shut, her eyes wide with terror. Carved into the bark above her head were 3 words that made the operator's blood run cold. Not the first. The man who did this had no idea he'd just made a fatal mistake. He didn't know that this K9 could track a scent through hell itself. And he had no clue that the quiet soldier standing in front of his victim was one of the most lethal men America had ever trained, because what started as a training run was about to become the manhunt of a lifetime. Before we begin, tell us where you are watching from, and if this story touches your heart, please subscribe for more. The morning mist hung low over the Blue Ridge Mountains like a burial shroud. It was October, and the Virginia woods were dressed in their dying colors, brilliant reds and golds that would have been beautiful if the air hadn't carried that particular kind of cold that settles into your bones. Sergeant First Class Marcus Reed didn't notice the beauty. He never did. Not anymore. His world had been reduced to mission parameters, threat assessments, and the rhythm of his boots on the forest floor. Beside him, moving like a shadow made flesh, was Havoc. Havoc was a Belgian Malinois, 90 pounds of coiled muscle and focused intelligence, bred in the Netherlands, trained at Lackland Air Force Base, and deployed to some of the darkest corners of the earth. His coat was a deep mahogany, his eyes the color of amber, and when he moved, it was with the fluid grace of an apex predator. He wasn't Marcus's pet. He was his partner, his brother, and the most effective weapon in Marcus's arsenal. They'd been through Kandahar together, through Mosul, through operations that didn't have names and never would. Today was supposed to be easy, a training exercise in familiar territory, a chance for Havoc to practice his tracking skills, and for Marcus to clear his head after 6 weeks of mandatory leave. That felt more like punishment than rest. The army called it decompression. Marcus called it torture. Being stuck stateside, filing reports and sitting through debriefings when every instinct in his body screamed to be back in the field, back where things made sense. They were 3 miles into the Daniel Boone National Forest, following a trail that wasn't on any map, when Havoc stopped. It wasn't a gradual thing, it was instant. 1 second the dog was moving forward, nose down, tail high. The next, he was frozen, every muscle in his body locked. His head snapped to the left, his ears swiveling like radar dishes, and then he did something Marcus had only seen him do twice before in 7 years. Havoc looked back at him and whined. The whine that came from Havoc wasn't the sound of a dog that had spotted a squirrel or caught the scent of deer. Marcus had heard Havoc make 1,000 different sounds over their 7 years together. The alert bark when he detected explosives, the low growl when hostile forces were close, the excited yip when he found his training dummy. But this sound, this was different. This was the sound of a dog that had found something deeply wrong, something that violated the natural order of things. Marcus dropped into a combat crouch instantly, his hand moving to the Sig Sauer P-320 holstered at his hip. His eyes scanned the forest with the systematic precision of a man who had survived by seeing threats before they materialized. Nothing moved. The woods were silent, too silent. Even the birds had stopped singing. "Havoc," he said quietly. "Show me." The dog moved forward off the trail, pushing through a dense thicket of mountain laurel, his body low to the ground. This was Havoc's working posture. Marcus followed, keeping his breathing controlled, and his footsteps silent, heel to toe. Weight distributed, no snapping branches. A ghost in the forest. They moved like this for maybe 40 yards. Time lost meaning when you shifted into operational mode. The world narrowed. There was only the mission now, only the objective. And then Havoc stopped again. This time he sat. It was his signal. Target acquired. Marcus pushed through the last screen of brush, and his entire world narrowed to a single point of focus. She was tied to a massive oak tree, Her arms were wrenched behind her back around the trunk. Thick industrial zip ties cut into her wrists so deeply that her hands were purple and swollen. Her ankles were bound together with the same ties. Duct tape covered her mouth, wrapped around her head multiple times. But it was her eyes that hit Marcus like a physical blow. They were wide with terror, yes, but also with something else. Recognition. Hope. She had heard them coming, and she had stayed silent, praying they were rescue and not her captor returning. She was young, maybe late 20s, Asian features, dark hair matted with leaves and dirt. She wore what had once been business casual clothing, a torn blouse, dress pants covered in mud and blood, and her belly. God, she was massively pregnant, 8 months at least. Her stomach was huge, and Marcus could see movement beneath the skin, the baby kicking, fighting, alive. Marcus's training kicked in, overriding the surge of fury that threatened to cloud his judgment. He raised one hand, palm out. "I'm U.S. Army," he said quietly, keeping his voice calm. "My name is Marcus. You're safe now. I'm going to get you out of here." Her eyes filled with tears. They spilled down her cheeks. She tried to speak, but the tape muffled everything. "Don't try to talk yet," Marcus said, moving closer. "I'm going to remove the tape. It's going to hurt. I'm sorry. Nod if you understand." She nodded. Marcus knelt and gently peeled back the edge of the duct tape. She whimpered as it pulled at her skin. When the tape came free, she gasped, sucking in air in great heaving sobs. "Water," she croaked. "Please." Marcus pulled his camelback around and held the tube to her lips. She drank desperately. Water spilled down her chin, but she didn't care. "How long have you been here?" Marcus asked, pulling a tactical knife from his belt. 2 days, she whispered. "Maybe 3. I don't know." He kept coming back. Marcus froze. "He's been here? Recently?" "This morning," she said, and fresh tears spilled. "He brought water. He said he was waiting for the right time. He said I wasn't ready yet." Every instinct screamed at Marcus to cut her free and run, but he forced himself to think. "Did you see which direction he went?" "That way." She nodded toward the northeast. "He always comes from that way." Marcus filed that away. "Havoc," he said. "Guard north." The dog moved immediately, positioning himself between the woman and the threat direction. His body was tense, his ears forward. If anything moved, Havoc would know. Marcus cut through the zip ties on her wrists first. The moment her hands were free, she brought them around to cradle her swollen belly. "The baby," she sobbed. "I can feel him moving, but I don't know if he's okay." "You will be," Marcus said, and he meant it. He cut the ties on her ankles and helped her lean forward. That's when he saw it, carved into the bark directly above where her head had been. 3 words gouged deep into the wood. "Not the first." The temperature in Marcus's blood dropped. This wasn't random. This was a pattern. This was a hunter who had done this before. Marcus pulled out his satellite phone. He dialed a number that connected directly to Joint Special Operations Command. It rang once. "Ops Center, this is an unsecure line. Identify yourself." "This is Sergeant First Class Marcus Reed, Special Forces Operational Detachment, Delta, callsign Reaper. 6. I am approximately 3 miles northeast of the Daniel Boone National Forest Ranger Station. I have a civilian female victim of abduction and assault. She is approximately 8 months, pregnant, and has been restrained for multiple days. I believe the suspect may be in the immediate area. I need immediate extraction and law enforcement response." There was a pause. Then a voice Marcus knew. "Major Sarah Castellano. Reaper 6, this is Castle. Confirm this is a domestic situation, not combat." "Confirmed, Castle, but I have evidence suggesting multiple victims. I need FBI and local law enforcement with medical support now. Position is not secure." "Copy that, Reaper. 6 Virginia. State Police and Bureau are being notified. Air evac is spinning up ETA. 15 minutes stay on this line." Marcus looked at the woman. "What's your name?" "Sarah," she whispered. "Sarah Chen." "Okay, Sarah, I need you to stay with me. Can you do that?" She nodded. "Do you know who did this to you?" I never saw his face, she said. He grabbed me from behind in the parking garage at my office in Richmond. It was late. He put something over my face. Chloroform, maybe. When I woke up, I was here. What do you do, Sarah? I'm a forensic accountant, she said, and something flickered in her eyes. I work for the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. Financial Crimes Division. Marcus's mind started connecting dots. A forensic accountant. Kidnapped. Held for days. Were you working on a case? Sarah's eyes met his. I found something. In the financial records of a real estate company. Money moving through shell corporations. Millions of dollars. I traced it back. It goes to a cartel. Los Zetas. They're using American real estate to launder drug money. And I had proof. I was 2 days from presenting to a grand jury. The pieces clicked together. This wasn't violence for violence's sake. This was an assassination attempt. Did anyone else know about this case? My supervisor, Sarah said. And my partner. Another accountant named Jennifer Rios. We were working it together. Where is Jennifer now? Sarah's face crumpled. I don't know. She stopped answering her phone 3 days before I was taken. She just disappeared. The sound of rotor blades cut through the air. Marcus looked up and saw the helicopter coming in fast. They couldn't land in the dense forest, but there was a clearing nearby. Can you walk? I think so. Marcus helped her to her feet. She swayed, and he caught her. Havoc moved in close, providing support. Together they made their way toward the clearing. It took 10 agonizing minutes. Sarah was weak, but she kept moving. She was a fighter. They broke through the tree line as the helicopter touched down. 2 paramedics jumped out with a stretcher. Behind them, a Virginia State Police cruiser arrived. And behind that, an unmarked black SUV. FBI. The paramedics got Sarah on the stretcher and started an IV. One pulled out a fetal Doppler and pressed it to her belly. A sound filled the clearing. Fast and strong. The baby's heartbeat. He's strong, the paramedic said, smiling at Sarah. Heart rate is 145. Perfect. We're getting you to Holston Valley Medical Center. You're going to be okay. As they loaded Sarah into the helicopter, she grabbed Marcus's hand. Thank you, she said. You saved us. Just take care of that boy, Marcus said. A woman stepped out of the FBI SUV. She was in her 40s, compact and solid with dark hair pulled back. She wore tactical pants and a FBI windbreaker. Sergeant Reed, she said. I'm Special Agent Maria Vasquez, FBI Violent Crimes. I need you to show me where you found her. Marcus led her back to the oak tree. Maria brought 2 other agents and a crime scene tech. When they reached the scene, Maria stopped and studied it with a practiced eye. She looked at the cut zip ties, the tape, the marks on the tree, and then the carved message, "Not the first." Her jaw tightened. We've seen something like this before, she said quietly. She pulled out her phone and showed Marcus a case file, a photo of another woman. Isabella Reyes, paralegal, worked on a RICO case against real estate companies. She vanished 4 months ago. We found her 3 weeks later in George Washington National Forest. Same setup, zip ties, duct tape. She died 2 days later in the hospital. Same guy, Marcus said. Same organization, Maria corrected. Los Zetas has been expanding into Virginia. When someone becomes a problem, they eliminate them. They use professionals. She turned to her tech. I want photographs of everything. Soil samples. Any trace evidence. Full search radius of 1/2 mile. Maria made a call. This is Vasquez. I need everything we have on Mountain Vista Development Corporation. Every file. Every investigation. Send it now. She looked at Marcus. Sarah mentioned a partner. Jennifer Rios. She said Jennifer stopped answering her phone 3 days before Sarah was taken. We've been looking for Jennifer Rios, Maria said. Missing 8 days. No witnesses. No evidence. Her car was in her driveway. Her phone on the kitchen counter. Like she vanished. She didn't vanish, Marcus said. Someone took her. Same person who took Sarah. If he's following the same pattern, Maria said slowly, Jennifer might still be alive. He kept Sarah for days. He was waiting for something. Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her eyes went wide. "We just got a hit on Jennifer Rios's cell phone. It's active, transmitting right now." "Where?" 14 miles northeast. Old mining property. Abandoned. There's nothing out there. She was already moving to her SUV. "You want to come along?" Unofficially. "Havoc," Marcus called. "Let's go." They drove fast. Too fast for the mountain roads, but Maria didn't care. She coordinated on her radio. Backup was 20 minutes out. Maybe more. They pulled onto a dirt access road. After a mile, they reached a chain-link fence. A sign read, "No trespassing, hazardous materials." The gate should have been locked. It wasn't. It was standing open. Maria drew her weapon. "Someone's been here recently." Marcus released Havoc and gave him the scent from Sarah's scene. Track. Havoc's nose went to work. He sniffed. Once. Twice. Then his head snapped up. He had it. They moved onto the property. It was a graveyard of decay. Rusted equipment, collapsed buildings, chemical-stained ground. In the center stood a concrete block building. The windows were boarded, and on the door was a new shiny padlock. Havoc stopped 10 yards away. He sat. Target inside. Maria radioed for backup. "ETA, 12 minutes. We should wait." Then they heard it. A scream from inside. Muffled. Female. Terrified. Marcus ran. He hit the door with his shoulder. The frame splintered. He hit it again, and it crashed inward. The interior was dark. The smell hit him. Human waste. Fear. Blood. His eyes adjusted. There was a single room, and chained to a support beam in the center was a woman. Thin, filthy, dark, matted hair. But her eyes were alert. When she saw them, she made a sound. Part sob, part laugh. "Jennifer Rios," Maria breathed. But Marcus was looking past her. In the back corner was a table, a laptop glowing, and sitting at that laptop was a man, ordinary-looking, middle-aged, average in every way. The kind of face you'd forget. He wore jeans and a work jacket, and on the table next to the laptop was a pistol. Everything happened in a heartbeat. The man's hand moved toward the gun. Maria yelled, "FBI, don't move!" Havoc launched forward. Marcus drew and fired. The shot took the man in the shoulder, spinning him away. Havoc hit him like a missile. Jaws clamped on his arm. The man screamed. "Havoc, release," Marcus commanded. Maria cuffed him as he bled. "You're under arrest for kidnapping and about 20 other charges." Marcus cut Jennifer free. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing. "Sarah," she whispered. "Is Sarah okay?" "Sarah's safe," Marcus told her. "So is her baby. You're both safe now." Backup arrived minutes later. Paramedics treated Jennifer. FBI forensics descended on the building. The laptop told the whole story. Surveillance logs on Sarah and Jennifer, copies of their case files from inside the Commonwealth Attorney's office, encrypted emails to Los Zetas operatives, wire transfers for $50,000. This was a coordinated hit ordered by a cartel. And they found something else. A third folder. Another target. Lisa Vance, age 31, forensic accountant, same office. The folder was labeled "In Progress," with a timestamp from that morning. Maria made a call. 20 minutes later, Lisa Vance was found in a storage unit in Abingdon, zip-tied, gagged, but alive. She'd been there less than 24 hours. 3 days later, Marcus stood in the hospital hallway watching through a window. Sarah Chen sat in bed holding her newborn son. The baby was healthy, 7 pounds 4 ounces. Perfect. Sarah had named him Marcus. She saw him and gestured him in. He entered awkwardly. "I wanted to thank you," Sarah said. "You saved our lives, both of us." "I was just in the right place," Marcus said. "No," Sarah said firmly. "You were exactly where you were supposed to be. You and Havoc were meant to find me. This little guy was meant to live." She looked at her son. "What's happening with the case?" "It's moving forward," Sarah said with steel in her voice. "Jennifer and Lisa and I are testifying. Grand jury convenes next week. Mountain Vista is being shut down. The cartel operatives are going to prison. Our evidence is airtight. And the man who took you? David Kowalski, former Army, dishonorably discharged, freelance contractor for Los Zetas, 15 confirmed kills. He's going away forever. Agent Vasquez made sure of that. Marcus nodded. Justice. He's going to grow up in a world where his mother didn't give up, Sarah said, looking at her baby. Where good people fought back. That matters, Marcus, more than you know. Marcus felt something crack in his chest. A wall he'd built over 15 years. It does matter, he said quietly. I needed to remember that. He left as the sun was setting. Havoc was waiting in the truck. Marcus climbed in, and the dog licked his face. A gesture of partnership. Good boy, Marcus said. We did good work. The drive back took an hour. The mountains were painted in gold and crimson. The world felt different, cleaner. Marcus had come seeking peace through isolation. But maybe peace wasn't found running away. Maybe it was found engaging with the world, using his skills for something that mattered. Remembering he was more than a weapon. He was a protector. 3 lives saved. A conspiracy exposed. A cartel dealt a blow. And a baby who would grow up not knowing how close he'd come to never existing. Not a bad few days. Marcus thought it was over. He really did. He thought he'd saved 3 women, exposed a cartel operation, and could finally go back to the peace he'd been searching for in these mountains. He thought wrong. The call came 3 days after he left the hospital. 3 days of trying to resettle into the quiet rhythm of the cabin. 3 days of splitting wood and running trails with Havoc and pretending that the world outside didn't exist. His satellite phone rang at 0600 hours. The screen showed a number he recognized. Maria Vasquez. We have a problem, she said without preamble. No hello. No, how are you? Just straight to business. Marcus respected that. What kind of problem? The kind where David Kowalski isn't talking, Maria said. He could hear the frustration in her voice. We've had him in custody for 72 hours. He's lawyered up, high-end defense attorney out of D.C., the kind of lawyer that costs more per hour than most people make in a month. And here's the thing, Marcus. Kowalski doesn't have that kind of money. Someone's paying for that lawyer, someone who wants to make sure he stays quiet. Marcus sat down at his small kitchen table. Havoc padded over and rested his head on Marcus's knee. Los Zetas. That's what we think, Maria confirmed. But we can't prove it. The money for the lawyer is coming through so many shell companies and offshore accounts that we can't trace it back. And without Kowalski's testimony, we can't connect the dots. We have him for kidnapping and assault. That's solid. He's going away for life. But the people who ordered the hit, the people who are laundering hundreds of millions through American real estate, they're still out there. What about Sarah and Jennifer's evidence? The financial records? It's good evidence, Maria said. It'll take down Mountain Vista Development. But Mountain Vista is just one operation. We think Los Zetas has at least 4 other real estate companies operating in Virginia alone. Without someone on the inside, without someone who knows the whole network, we're just cutting off one head of a hydra. Marcus was quiet for a moment. He knew where this was going. What do you need from me? Kowalski had a base of operations, Maria said. We found the mining building where he kept Jennifer. But that wasn't his primary location. That was just a holding facility. We've been going through his laptop trying to trace his movements. He was careful, very careful. But he made one mistake. 3 weeks ago, he forgot to turn off his phone's location services for about 6 hours. We got a ping, deep in the national forest. About 30 miles from where you found Sarah. You think that's where he was operating from? I think that's where he was living, Maria said. And I think that's where he kept his real records, his communications, his payment ledgers, everything we need to roll up this entire operation. But here's the problem. It's in the middle of nowhere. No roads, no trails, just wilderness. And it's been a week since we arrested him. If Los Zetas knows we have him, they might have already sent someone to clean out that location. We need to get there fast. And we need someone who can move through that terrain without being seen. You need a Delta operator and a tracking dog. I need you, Marcus, Maria said simply. Officially, I can't ask you to do this. You're on leave. This isn't your jurisdiction. But unofficially, we could use your help. Marcus looked out the window at the mountains, at the vast green wilderness that had been his refuge. He thought about Sarah Chen holding her newborn son, about Jennifer Rios, who had spent 8 days chained in a concrete building, about Lisa Vance, who had come within hours of the same fate. He thought about the carved message on that tree. Not the first. How many others had there been? How many women had disappeared into these mountains and never came out? Send me the coordinates, Marcus said. We'll find it. Maria arrived 2 hours later in her black SUV. She brought 2 other agents with her, both men, both younger than Marcus, both carrying the kind of tactical gear that said they'd been through Quantico's hostage rescue team training. Good operators, but not wilderness operators, not like Marcus. They spread a topographical map across the hood of Maria's vehicle. She pointed to a spot deep in the forest. This is where we got the ping. It's in a valley between 2 ridges, heavily forested, no easy access. The nearest logging road is 8 miles away. Marcus studied the map with the trained eye of someone who had navigated far worse terrain. If Kowalski was using this as a base, he needed a way in and out, something he could drive. At least part of the way. We checked, one of the other agents said. His name was Chen, no relation to Sarah. There's an old fire access road that gets within 3 miles, but it's been closed for 15 years, washed out in multiple places. 3 miles on foot through mountain terrain, Marcus said. That's manageable. What are we looking for when we get there? Anything that looks like a structure, Maria said. Kowalski was former military. He knew how to live rough. It could be a cabin, could be a bunker, could be nothing more than a camouflaged tent. But whatever it is, that's where he was coordinating from. And if Los Zetas sent someone to clean it out? Maria's expression hardened. Then we deal with it. They drove as far as the fire road would take them, which wasn't far. After 2 miles, the road simply ceased to exist, washed away by a decade of storms and neglect. They parked and continued on foot. Marcus took point with Havoc. The dog moved through the forest like he'd been born to it, which, in a way, he had. Belgian Malinois were bred for work, for endurance, for the kind of relentless drive that made them perfect military working dogs. The terrain was brutal, steep inclines, dense undergrowth, creek beds that had to be forded. They moved in tactical silence, hand signals only. Marcus set a pace that was fast enough to cover ground but slow enough to stay quiet. The FBI agents kept up, but Marcus could see they were struggling. This wasn't their world. It took 3 hours to cover 3 miles. They crested a ridge, and Marcus held up a fist. Everyone stopped. Below them in the valley was a structure, just barely visible through the trees. It was a small cabin, maybe 20 feet by 15, built into the hillside with a living roof covered in moss and vegetation. From the air you'd never see it. From the ground you wouldn't spot it unless you knew exactly where to look. Marcus pulled out a small monocular and glassed the cabin. No movement, no smoke from the chimney, no vehicles. But that didn't mean it was empty. He watched for 5 full minutes, looking for anything. A shadow crossing a window, a door opening, a bird taking flight from a disturbance. Nothing. Havoc, Marcus whispered. Seek. The dog's nose went up. He sampled the air, testing it, reading it the way Marcus read terrain. After a moment, Havoc looked back at Marcus and sat, his signal for target acquired. But the dog wasn't agitated, wasn't aggressive, which meant whatever scent he was picking up, it wasn't fresh. Not immediate threat. Marcus signaled to Maria. 3 fingers pointed at his eyes, then at the cabin. I see the target. 2 fingers pointed at the tree line to the left. You go left. He pointed at Agent Chen and indicated right. Chen nodded. They moved down the slope in a coordinated pattern. Classic CQB approach. 3 points of entry. overlapping fields of fire. Havoc stayed at Marcus's side. As they got closer, Marcus could see details. The cabin door was slightly ajar, not wide open, just cracked, like someone had left in a hurry, or like someone had forced entry. Marcus reached the door first. He pressed his back against the wall and listened. Nothing. No sound from inside. No breathing. No movement. He gave Havoc the command. Clear. The dog pushed through the door, low and fast. A black and tan blur disappearing into the darkness of the cabin. 3 seconds later, Havoc barked once. All clear. Marcus entered with his Sig Sauer up and ready. The interior was exactly what he expected. Spartan, functional, a cot in one corner, a small table with a camp stove, shelves lined with canned food and water bottles, and in the back corner a setup that made Marcus's blood run cold. A desk, 3 laptops, a satellite communication system, a printer, stacks of file folders, and covering one entire wall a map. Not a topographical map, a target map. It showed the greater Richmond area. And pinned to that map were photographs, dozens of them. Women. All professional-looking, all in their late 20s to early 40s. Some of the photos had red X marks drawn across them in marker. Maria came in behind Marcus and stopped. Jesus, she breathed. There were 18 photos total. Marcus counted them quickly. 12 had red X marks. 12 victims. Sarah and Jennifer's photos were there. No X marks. They'd been saved just in time. Lisa Vance was there too, also unmarked. But that meant there were 9 other women with X marks. 9 other targets who had been eliminated. We need to ID every person on this wall, Maria said, pulling out her phone and starting to photograph everything. If Kowalski killed 12 people, he didn't, Marcus said. He was looking at something else. A ledger on the desk. He flipped it open. It was a payment log. Names, dates, dollar amounts. Kowalski was the current contractor. But this operation has been running for 3 years. Look at these dates. Look at these names. Maria came over and looked at the ledger. Her face went pale. These are different contractors, different killers. Los Zetas has been rotating through freelancers, keeping it fresh, keeping it unpredictable. Marcus flipped to the most recent page. It was dated 2 days ago. After Kowalski's arrest, the entry read, K compromised, cleanup authorized, new contractor dispatched, target, evidence plus loose ends. They sent someone, Marcus said quietly. They sent someone to clean this place out, and they're still coming. As if in answer to his words, Havoc suddenly went rigid. The fur on his spine stood up. A low growl rumbled in his chest. His eyes were fixed on the door. Marcus moved instantly. He grabbed Maria and pulled her away from the window. Down, he hissed. Everyone down. The shot came half a second later. The window exploded inward. Glass shattered. The round punched through the cabin wall right where Maria had been standing. High-powered rifle. Long range. Sniper! Marcus yelled. We're pinned. 2 more shots came in rapid succession. One hit the desk, splintering wood. The other hit the wall near Agent Chen, who dove behind the overturned cot. They were taking fire from elevated position, probably the ridge Marcus's team had just come from. Marcus's mind was already working through the tactical problem. The shooter had the high ground, had concealment, had range. They were trapped in a small wooden structure that would provide exactly 0 protection against rifle rounds. They needed to move, but moving meant exposing themselves. Chen, Marcus called out. You still have that smoke? 2 canisters, Chen called back. On my mark, throw them both out the door. Maria, you and Garcia go left into the tree line. Chen, you're with me, we go right. Move fast, move low, don't stop. Havoc, we'll track the shooter. How do you know there's only one? Garcia asked. Because if there were 2, we'd already be dead, Marcus said. This guy is good, but he's alone. He's trying to pin us down until he can reposition to a better angle. We don't give him that chance. Ready? Maria nodded. The 2 male agents looked terrified, but they nodded too. Mark, Marcus said. Chen pulled the pins and threw both smoke grenades. They bounced out the door and began belching thick grey smoke. Within seconds, the entire clearing was obscured. Marcus didn't wait. He burst through the door with Havoc at his side and ran right, low, fast, zigzagging. He heard Maria and Garcia going left. More shots came, but they were blind shots. The sniper was firing into smoke, hoping to get lucky. Marcus made it to the tree line and dove behind a fallen log. Havoc was beside him, breathing hard but not panicked. Never panicked. "Track," Marcus commanded. Havoc's nose went to work. He had the scent. Gunpowder, sweat, gun oil, the unique smell of a human under stress. The dog turned and looked up the slope, pointing like a bird dog. The sniper was up there. Maybe 500 yards, maybe less. Marcus keyed his radio. "Maria, you good?" "We're good. What's the play?" "The shooter is on the eastern ridge. Elevated position. I'm going to flank him. You keep his attention here. Fire a few rounds in his general direction. Make him think you're pinned down and trying to fight back." "You're going after him alone?" "I've got Havoc," Marcus said. "That makes 2 of us." He didn't wait for an answer. He began moving up the slope, not directly toward the shooter. That would be suicide. He angled wide, using the terrain, using the dense forest, moving the way he'd been taught in the Appalachian Mountains during Robin's Sage training. Silent, methodical, invisible, Havoc moved ahead of him. The dog's training was kicking in now. This was what he'd been bred for, what he'd been trained for, finding the enemy. Below them, Marcus heard sporadic gunfire, Maria and her team putting rounds down range, keeping the sniper's attention focused on the cabin. It took 20 minutes to circle around. 20 minutes of climbing, of moving through brush so thick it tore at his clothes, of controlling his breathing, his heart rate, his focus. And then Havoc stopped. Saturday, Marcus froze. Through the trees ahead he could see a shape, a man lying prone on a rocky outcrop. He had a high-powered rifle, probably a .308. He was focused downslope toward the cabin, completely unaware that Marcus was now 30 yards behind him. Marcus studied him for a moment. The man was professional, good position, good concealment, but he'd made one critical mistake. He'd focused so completely on his targets below that he'd forgotten to watch his 6. That's what overconfidence did. It killed you. Marcus moved forward, silent as death. He covered 20 yards before the man finally sensed something, some primal instinct that said you're being hunted. He started to turn. Too late. Marcus closed the final distance in 3 running steps and hit the man with his full weight. The rifle went flying. They hit the ground hard, rolling. The man was strong, trained. He threw an elbow that caught Marcus in the ribs. Pain exploded, but Marcus didn't let go. He got his arm around the man's neck and locked in a rear-naked choke. The man thrashed, clawed, fought, but Marcus held on, applying pressure, cutting off blood flow to the brain. 10 seconds later, the man went limp. Marcus held the choke for another 5 seconds, making sure. Then he released and zip-tied the man's hands behind his back. Havoc was there, standing over them, teeth bared, making sure the threat didn't get back up. Marcus keyed his radio. "Threat neutralized. I have 1 in custody. You can come up." Maria and her team arrived 10 minutes later. They looked at the unconscious man, at the expensive rifle, at the tactical gear. "Who is he?" Maria asked. Marcus went through the man's pockets. He found a phone, a wallet with 3 different IDs, all fake, and a folded piece of paper. Marcus opened it. It was a list. 5 names: Sarah Chen, Jennifer Rios, Lisa Vance, and 2 names that made his stomach drop: Maria Vasquez, Marcus Reed. "They put us on the list," Maria said, quietly looking at the paper. "We're loose ends now too. Then we'd better make sure we tie this up before they send someone else," Marcus said. They carried the unconscious contractor back down to the cabin. Maria's team began cataloging everything: the laptops, the files, the ledgers, the photographs. It was a treasure trove of evidence, enough to dismantle not just the Virginia operation, but Los Zetas' entire real estate laundering network across 6 states. But Marcus was looking at something else. The map on the wall. He studied it carefully, looking at the pattern, the locations, the timing, and then he saw it. A pattern within the pattern. All 12 of the women who had been killed. All of them worked in some capacity for law enforcement or prosecutors, and all of them had been working cases that involved real estate fraud or money laundering. But there was something else, something that connected them all. Maria, Marcus said. Who was the prosecutor on Sarah and Jennifer's case? Who was going to present their evidence to the grand jury? Maria pulled out her phone and checked. Assistant Commonwealth Attorney named Michael Brennan. Why? Look at this, Marcus said, pointing to the map. Every one of these victims had a case that was being handled by the same prosecutor's office. Richmond, and I'm willing to bet they all had the same prosecutor assigned. Maria's eyes widened. You think Brennan is dirty? I think someone in that office is feeding information to Los Zetas, Marcus said. Someone who knows which cases are dangerous, which investigators are getting close. That's how they knew to target Sarah and Jennifer. That's how they've stayed ahead of law enforcement for 3 years. Maria was already on her phone. This is Vasquez. I need a full background workup on Assistant Commonwealth Attorney Michael Brennan. Everything. Financials, associates, travel. I want to know if this guy so much as jaywalked in the 3rd grade. And I need it yesterday. She hung up and looked at Marcus. If you're right, if there's a mole in the prosecutor's office, then everyone who testified against Los Zetas is at risk. Sarah, Jennifer, Lisa, they're all still in danger. Marcus felt the cold calculation of mission planning settle over him. Then we need to move them. Now. Before Los Zetas realizes we just took out their cleaner and found their entire operational database. Move them where? Somewhere they can't be found, Marcus said. Somewhere off the grid. Somewhere even Los Zetas can't reach. Maria was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. I know a place. Federal Protective Custody. We've got a safe house network. Completely compartmentalized. Even I won't know exactly where they are. But Marcus, if we're going to do this, if we're going to put them in WITSEC, we need to make the arrests now. We need to hit Los Zetas so hard they don't have time to retaliate. Then let's hit them, Marcus said. The next 48 hours were a blur of coordinated federal action. Maria took the evidence from Kowalski's cabin and built an airtight case. The laptops contained everything. Communications with cartel leadership, payment records, detailed logs of every property transaction, bank account numbers, the identities of shell company officers. It was the kind of intelligence that prosecutors dream about. Sarah Chen, Jennifer Rios, and Lisa Vance were moved in the middle of the night. U.S. Marshals showed up at their homes with an hour's notice. Pack a bag, say goodbye to no one, leave your phones, leave your lives. They were scattered to 3 different locations, each of them placed with new identities in cities they'd never been to. It was harsh, it was necessary, and it probably saved their lives. Meanwhile, Maria coordinated with the FBI's Richmond field office, with DEA, with ICE, with the U.S. Attorney's Office. They built a task force, 40 agents, multiple jurisdictions, all targeting the network simultaneously, and they confirmed Marcus's suspicion. Assistant Commonwealth Attorney Michael Brennan had been on Los Zetas' payroll for 2 years. He'd received over $300,000 in payments through a consulting company that didn't actually do any work. He was the one who had identified Sarah and Jennifer as threats. He was the one who had passed their information to the cartel. He was the one who had signed their death warrants. When the arrests came, they came fast and hard. FBI hit 6 different locations simultaneously, the offices of Mountain Vista Development, 3 other real estate companies, 2 law firms that had been facilitating the transactions, and Michael Brennan's home. Brennan tried to run. He made it to his garage, got his car started. He was backing down his driveway when 2 FBI SUVs blocked him in. He was pulled from his vehicle and cuffed on his front lawn while his neighbors watched. His wife was screaming. His children were crying. But Marcus, who was watching the arrest from Maria's mobile command post, felt no sympathy. This man had sent 12 women to their deaths. He deserved worse than handcuffs. In Mexico, Los Zetas leadership watched their Virginia operation collapse in real time. They watched their money dry up, their properties seized, their network dismantled, and they made a calculation: it was over. The Americans had won this round. They pulled out, shut down their remaining operations, and disappeared back into the shadows to plan their next move. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood on the porch of his cabin watching the sun set over the mountains. Havoc was beside him, the dog's head resting on his knee. They'd been through it. Again, a different kind of war, but a war nonetheless. His satellite phone rang. He looked at the screen. Maria Vasquez. "Hey," he said, answering. "I wanted to give you an update," Maria said. Brennan flipped. "He's cooperating fully. Gave us everything. Names, dates, methods. We've identified 11 of the 12 victims from Kowalski's wall. Families have been notified. Bodies are being recovered. It's not much, but at least they'll get closure." "What about Sarah and the others?" "Safe," Maria said. "They're doing well. Sarah's baby is healthy. Jennifer is getting counseling. Lisa is adjusting. They know they can't come back. Not for years, maybe not ever. But they're alive, Marcus. Because of you. Because of Havoc," Marcus said. "He's the one who found them. You're a team," Maria said simply. "Look, Marcus, I know you came out here for peace. I know you didn't want to get pulled into this. But you saved lives. You took down a major cartel operation, and you proved that sometimes the right person in the right place at the right time can change everything." "Just doing what needed doing," Marcus said. "Well," Maria said, and he could hear the smile in her voice, "if you ever get tired of the quiet life, the FBI could use someone like you, someone who knows how to operate in the spaces between the rules, someone who isn't afraid to walk into the darkness to pull people out." "I'll think about it," Marcus said. He hung up and looked at Havoc. The dog looked back at him with those intelligent amber eyes. "What do you think, boy?" Marcus asked. "Ready to retire? Or do we have more work to do?" Havoc's tail thumped once against the porch. A clear answer. Marcus smiled. Maybe peace wasn't about hiding from the world. Maybe it was about finding purpose in it. He'd come to these mountains broken, empty, looking for silence. Instead, he'd found something better. He'd found a reason, a mission, a way to use his skills for something that mattered. 3 women were alive because a dog had followed a scent, because a soldier had followed his instincts, because when evil came into these mountains there was someone ready to stand against it. Not a bad purpose to have. The trial took 8 months to organize. 8 months of legal maneuvering and sealed testimony and witness protection protocols. 8 months during which Marcus returned to active duty with Delta Force deployed twice to places he couldn't name for operations he couldn't discuss. But he came back. He always came back to these mountains, to the cabin, to Havoc, to the quiet that had finally stopped feeling like emptiness and started feeling like home. When the notification came that Michael Brennan's trial was beginning, Marcus was in Baghdad running counter-terrorism operations. Maria Vasquez sent him an encrypted message through official channels. "Trial starts Monday. Your testimony not required. Evidence speaks for itself. Thought you'd want to know." Marcus read the message in a dusty compound while gunfire echoed in the distance. He thought about Sarah Chen, about Jennifer Rios, about Lisa Vance, about 12 other women whose names he now knew, whose faces he'd memorized from that wall in Kowalski's cabin. Women who had been erased simply because they'd been good at their jobs, because they'd been threats to men who valued money more than human life. He wrote back a single word. "Outcome?" Maria's response came 3 hours later. "Guilty on all counts. Life without parole. Brennan's going to die in prison. So is Kowalski. Los Zetas network in Virginia is dead. We seized over 200 million in assets. 43 arrests total. You did good, Marcus. Come home safe." Marcus deleted the messages and went back to work. But something had shifted in him. For 15 years he'd been fighting enemies overseas, protecting American interests in foreign lands, doing the necessary dark work that kept the homeland safe. But for the first time he understood that evil didn't just exist in distant countries, it existed everywhere. Even in quiet mountain towns, even in places that looked like paradise. And sometimes the most important battles weren't fought with rifles and grenades. Sometimes they were fought with evidence and testimony and a dog's keen nose. When he finally rotated back stateside 6 weeks later, Marcus took his accumulated leave time and drove straight to the mountains. Havoc rode beside him in the passenger seat, his head hanging out the window, his tongue lolling in the wind. The dog was getting older. 7 years was a long career for a military working dog. Most retired by 8. Marcus could see the grey starting to show around Havoc's muzzle, could see the slight stiffness in his gait after long operations, but the dog's spirit was undiminished. His eyes were still bright, his nose still sharp. He was still a warrior. They arrived at the cabin in late afternoon. The autumn colors were at their peak. The mountains burned with impossible shades of orange and gold and red. Marcus unpacked his gear, started a fire in the stone hearth, made coffee, and then he sat on the porch with Havoc and watched the light fade. His satellite phone rang as darkness settled over the forest. Unknown number. Hello? Marcus Reed. The voice was female. Young. Uncertain. Who's asking? My name is Sarah Chen, the voice said, and Marcus sat up straight. I don't know if you remember me. You found me in the woods. You saved my life. I remember, Marcus said quietly. How did you get this number? Agent Vasquez gave it to me, Sarah said. She said it was okay to call. I hope that's true. I hope I'm not overstepping. But I needed to talk to you. I needed you to know something. What's that? They told me I can come home, Sarah said, and he could hear tears in her voice. The trial is over. Brennan's in prison. The cartel has pulled out of Virginia. The FBI says the threat level is low enough that I can come back. I can reclaim my life, my identity, everything. That's good news, Marcus said, and he meant it. You deserve to go home. I'm not going to, Sarah said. That's what I wanted to tell you. I'm staying where I am. I have a new life now, a new name, a new job. Marcus, the baby, he's thriving, he's happy. And I realized something. The person I was before, the life I had, it was just a life. It was fine. But this is a chance to start over, to build something better, to be someone new. Marcus understood. He understood better than she probably realized. What does your son call you? He asked. Sarah laughed softly. Mom, just Mom. His first word was dog. He's obsessed with dogs. I think I'm going to get him one when he's older. A German shepherd, maybe, in honor of the one who saved us. Havoc would like that, Marcus said. The dog's ears perked up at the sound of his name. I wanted to thank you, Sarah said. Really thank you. Not just for finding me, but for not giving up, for tracking down Kowalski's cabin, for exposing Brennan, for everything. You didn't have to do any of that. You were on leave. You came to those mountains for peace, and instead you got pulled into a war. Sometimes the war finds you, Marcus said. No matter how far you run. Agent Vasquez told me about you, Sarah continued. About your career, about the things you've done. She said you're a hero, one of the most decorated soldiers in Delta Force, and I believe her. But I wanted you to know that what you did for me, for Jennifer and Lisa and all those other women, that wasn't just another mission. That was personal. That mattered in a different way. You gave us our lives back. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He looked at Havoc, at the dog who had been with him through everything, through firefights in Afghanistan, through raids in Syria, through the darkness of a dozen covert operations, and through a misty October morning when a whine had stopped him in his tracks and changed 3 lives forever. Your son, Marcus said. You named him after me. I did, Sarah said. I hope that's okay. I hope it doesn't make you uncomfortable. But every time I say his name, I remember what you did. I remember that there are still good people in the world, people who run toward danger instead of away from it, people who protect the innocent. He's going to grow up knowing that, knowing he was named after a hero. I'm not a hero, Marcus said. I'm just a soldier. You're both, Sarah said simply. And I'll spend the rest of my life grateful that you and Havoc were in those woods that day. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. The line went dead. Marcus sat holding the phone for a long time. The stars were coming out now, brilliant and sharp in the mountain air. He thought about the randomness of it, the cosmic coincidence that had put him on that training route on that particular morning. 5 minutes later, and Sarah would have been just another missing person. Another cold case. Another name on a list. But he had been there. And Havoc had been there. And because of that, 3 women were alive, and a cartel operation was dismantled, and a corrupt prosecutor was behind bars, and somewhere in America, a little boy named Marcus was sleeping safely in his crib. Not randomness. Purpose. 2 weeks later, Maria Vasquez drove up to the cabin unannounced. She arrived in the late afternoon carrying a cardboard box and wearing civilian clothes. Jeans, a sweater, her hair down instead of pulled back. She looked different. Softer somehow. I come bearing gifts, she said, setting the box on the porch. And also a proposition. Marcus invited her in, made coffee. Havoc recognized her immediately and came over for scratches. Maria obliged, laughing as the big dog leaned against her legs, nearly knocking her over. He remembers you, Marcus said. Good, Maria said, because I've been thinking about him. About both of you, actually. She opened the cardboard box and pulled out a thick folder. This is every cold case in Virginia that fits the pattern. Missing women. Professional backgrounds. Connections to law enforcement or prosecution. Some of these go back 5 years. Most were never even classified as related, just isolated disappearances. But I think they're all connected. I think Los Zetas has been operating here longer than we realized. Marcus took the folder and flipped through it. 17 cases, 17 faces, 17 families who had never gotten answers. We found 11 of the 12 women from Kowalski's wall, Maria continued. We recovered remains. We gave families closure, but that still leaves one missing. And all of these, she gestured to the folder. These women deserve the same. They deserve to be found, to be brought home. You want me to find them, Marcus said. I want you and Havoc to do what you do best, Maria said. Track, hunt, bring the lost home. The FBI has resources. We have technology. But we don't have what you have. We don't have instinct. We don't have a dog that can track a 3-day-old scent through a forest. We don't have someone who can read terrain like a book and find the places where bodies get hidden. She leaned forward, her expression intense. I'm putting together a task force, cold case recoveries, specifically focused on cartel victims. It's federal funding. It's legitimate. And I want you to consult. Not full-time. You've got your Delta commitments. But when you're stateside, when you're on leave, I want you in these mountains, doing what you were born to do. Marcus looked at the folder. At the faces, young women, old women, professionals and mothers and daughters, all gone, all waiting to be found. What's the pay? He asked. Maria smiled. Enough to keep your cabin heated and your dog fed, plus you get official credentials, FBI consultant status, which means you can go places and ask questions without anyone getting in your way. And Marcus, you'd be saving families, giving them closure, letting them bury their loved ones with dignity. That's worth something. It's worth everything, Marcus said quietly. They worked out the details over coffee. Marcus would be on call. When Maria's team identified a likely dump site or a location that needed a ground search, Marcus and Havoc would deploy. He'd have full access to FBI resources, full backing, and he'd be doing work that mattered. There's one more thing, Maria said as she was leaving. I heard from Jennifer Rios. She's doing well. She's in therapy, processing everything. But she wanted me to tell you something. She said that when she was chained in that building, when she thought she was going to die, she prayed. She's not religious, never had been, but she prayed anyway. She asked God to send someone, anyone, and then she heard the door break open. She heard your voice, and she said she knew in that moment that prayers get answered, sometimes in the form of a soldier and his dog. Marcus walked Maria to her SUV, watched her drive away down the winding mountain road. Then he went back to the porch where Havoc was waiting. "What do you think, boy?" Marcus asked. "You ready to keep working?" Havoc's tail thumped against the wooden boards. The dog stood up, stretched, and looked at Marcus with those bright, intelligent eyes. Ready. Always ready. Over the next 6 months, Marcus and Havoc found 4 more bodies. 4 women from the cold case files Maria had given him. They found them in places where no one else would have thought to look. A collapsed mine shaft, a ravine hidden by decades of overgrowth, a shallow grave in a national forest, marked only by a cairn of stones that meant nothing to anyone but a killer. Each recovery was painful. Each one meant a family getting the worst news. But it also meant closure. It meant funerals. It meant gravestones instead of missing person posters. It meant that these women weren't just gone. They were remembered. They were mourned. They were brought home. Marcus attended 2 of the funerals. He stood in the back, didn't talk to anyone, just paid his respects. At the second one, a woman approached him. She was in her 60s, grey hair, kind eyes. She introduced herself as the mother of one of the victims. "Agent Vasquez told me what you do," the woman said. "She told me you found my daughter, that without you and your dog we never would have known what happened. We would have spent the rest of our lives wondering, hoping. That's a special kind of hell. You saved us from that. Thank you." Marcus didn't know what to say. He'd spent 15 years dealing death, becoming proficient at violence, learning to be a weapon. But this was different. This was about bringing peace, about healing, about using his skills not to destroy, but to restore. "Your daughter deserved better," Marcus said finally. "She did," the woman agreed. "But because of you, she got justice and peace. That's more than most families get. That's everything." 1 year after finding Sarah Chen, Marcus received an unexpected package. It arrived at his cabin via secure courier. Inside was a photo. It showed a little boy, maybe 18 months old, dark hair, bright eyes, a huge smile. He was sitting on a blanket in a park somewhere surrounded by toys. And next to him, sitting at perfect attention, was a German shepherd puppy. On the back of the photo was a message written in neat handwriting. "Marcus met his best friend today. We named the puppy Havoc, in honor of the hero who saved us both. Thank you for giving us a future. Love, Sarah and Marcus Chen." Marcus pinned the photo to the wall of his cabin, right next to his military citations and his deployment photos. It hung there as a reminder that the work mattered, that the darkness could be fought, that sometimes being in the right place at the right time wasn't luck, it was purpose. Havoc was 8 years old now, officially retired from military service, but he still worked with Marcus on the cold case recoveries, still tracked scents through impossible terrain, still sat with that perfect alertness when he found what he was looking for. He was older, slower, but he was still the best partner Marcus had ever had. On a cool November morning, Marcus and Havoc were running a trail when the dog stopped suddenly. That familiar pose, that intense focus. Marcus's heart rate kicked up. They weren't on a case. This was just a training run. But Havoc had found something. Marcus gave the command. "Show me." The dog led him off trail, through dense brush, down a slope, to a place where a rock slide had recently exposed a section of earth that had been buried for years. And there, barely visible, was fabric, old, faded, but unmistakably clothing. Marcus called Maria. Within 4 hours they had a forensics team on site. Within a week they had an identification. The last missing woman from Kowalski's wall. The 12th victim. She'd been there for 3 years. Forgotten. Lost. But not anymore. Her family buried her on a bright December morning. They invited Marcus to the service. This time he didn't stand in the back. He sat with the family, let them thank him, let them grieve, and when it was over, the victim's father, a man in his 70s with tears streaming down his weathered face, shook Marcus's hand and said 5 words that Marcus would never forget. "You brought my daughter home." That evening, Marcus sat on his porch with Havoc curled at his feet. The mountains were dusted with the first snow of winter. The world was quiet, peaceful, but it wasn't an empty peace anymore. It was a peace earned through purpose, through action, through the understanding that running from the world didn't bring healing. Engaging with it did. His satellite phone rang. "Maria, we've got another one," she said. "Missing person, professional woman, forensic analyst. Disappeared 2 days ago in West Virginia. Might not be related. Might be. But I thought." "Send me the details," Marcus said. "We'll find her." He hung up and looked at Havoc. The dog's ears had perked up at the tone in Marcus's voice, the tone that said it was time to work. "Ready, boy?" Havoc stood, stretched, tail wagging, always ready. Marcus stood too, went inside, started packing his gear. Because that's what he did now. That's who he was. Not just a soldier, not just a weapon, but a protector, a finder of the lost, a voice for the voiceless. And he had the best partner in the world to help him do it. The mountains would always be here. The peace would always be waiting. But right now, someone needed finding. And Marcus Reed and Havoc were the ones who would find them. Not a bad purpose to have. Not a bad life to live. If this story of courage, loyalty, and second chances touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear a message of hope today. Let us know in the comments below what moved you most. Was it Marcus finding his purpose after years of war? Was it Havoc's unwavering devotion? Was it Sarah's strength to rebuild her life? We read every comment, and your words mean everything to our community. Please subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate the incredible bond between soldiers and their K9 partners. Stories of bravery. Stories of redemption. Stories that remind us that heroes come in many forms, and sometimes they have 4 legs and a wagging tail. Before you go, we want to send a prayer to everyone watching this. May God bless you and keep you safe in all your journeys. May He give you the courage to face whatever battles lie ahead. May He help you find your purpose the way Marcus found his. And may He remind you that you are never truly alone, that there are protectors watching over you, that there is always hope even in the darkest moments. If you believe that God puts people in the right place at the right time for a reason, if you believe that loyalty and courage can change the world, if you felt the power of this story deep in your spirit, please write Amen in the comments below. Let us know you're part of this family. Let us know this message reached your heart. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of our community. Stay safe, stay strong, and remember that sometimes the most important mission isn't the one you plan, it's the one that finds you. Amen.